In the unedited footage of a bear, there's a shot of a woman standing in a suburban landscape in this completely absurd, horrifying way. It's simple, yet it gets under your skin. And that scene made me wonder what actually makes something horrifying, liminal, and absurd all at once? Is it perhaps the combination of something being utterly familiar, but still hauntingly terrifying? Freud had a word for this. He described the feeling of something being uncanny as unheimlich. Das unheimlich in his account refers to the emotional state that occurs when something feels simultaneously familiar and alien at the same time, causing cognitive dissonance, discomfort, and a sense of eerie strangeness that you can't quite shake. And that certain emotional state, it's perhaps best explored in what you would call absurd and liminal horror.
So, here are two pieces of media that are the perfect example of absurd and liminal horror.
Unedited footage of a bear was released in 2014 as part of Adult Swim's infomercial series. The video starts off as the title suggests, unedited footage of a bear, until an apparent ad appears. At first glance, something already feels off. The ad is counting up and not down. And since the video aired on TV, the audience watching at the time must have been confused by a sudden YouTube ad appearing. Nonetheless, the ad actually follows any typical ad's pacing, with a seemingly normal mom being visibly nauseated or sick with two of her children. The ad reveals that taking a medicine called Claradril is going to help her with her symptoms. As mentioned before, sudden details already stick out that makes the ad appear odd. For me, an example of the oddness is the very liminal structure of the suburban neighborhood. Perhaps it's just exposure to liminal medium, but still, it already feels too normal. Likewise, small glimpses of what we will find out later also appear in the background, leaving you with a sense of something being wrong. This off-putting feeling I'm referring to reveals itself later, when the music quiets down and the woman is sitting in her car alone. Suddenly we're exposed to what seems like a crime scene, where a suspect has gone completely nuts, and it's clear that the tone of the video has now changed dramatically. The woman continues to drive, and suddenly we're exposed to what perhaps might be the most terrifying visual I have ever experienced. A perfect blend between a liminal, horrifying feeling with the suburban landscape, yet an equally haunting feeling of the absurd, horrifying way the doppelganger of the woman is standing. The camera view, the terrifying posture of the woman, and the slow realization of what's happening all come together to form this terrifying chase scene. In my opinion, Das Unheimlich can be better used on anything rather than this particular scene. Everything is on the surface familiar, but something is just very, very off. As seen here, the doppelganger attacks the woman in a brutal beatdown and even runs her over. The video continues and we see this evil doppelganger, which obviously is a metaphor for the horrific side effects that pharmaceuticals as Claradril can have on a person. We see how the woman or the doppelganger infiltrates the woman's life and everything goes downhill and basically spirals into madness. The video's cuts and storytelling are themselves strangely unconventional and even absurd to some extent. We don't really know what's going on and if it's the real woman or the doppelganger. This in turn adds to the confusion and absurdness of it all. Unedited footage of a bear is a masterpiece, not just in terms of liminal and absurd horror, but even just as a piece of horror media. The symbolic meaning of the doppelganger, but also the small details hidden within the video. For example, the increasingly terrifying side effects of the drug, which are referred to throughout the ad. Likewise, taking an ad format and turning it into a horrifying story is of itself absurd, but it works in surprising us and in turns scares the shit out of us. Next on the list is The House Has People in It. Like unedited footage of a bear, it's from Adult Swim's infomercial series, and it is even directed by the same guy, Alan Resnick. The video follows what seems like a normal family waiting for the guest of their son's birthday party. We're watching this family and what appears to be some kind of maintenance dude through the security cameras of the house, basically meaning we get to see everything taking place. At first glance, everything feels familiar and ordinary, but suddenly things starts to change. Weird things start happening and we begin to question that familiarity we felt in the beginning. At first, the strangeness comes across as the daughter of the family doing some kind of prank. She's basically laying face first on the floor. It seems like a normal family feud with perhaps an unorthodox teenage way of pissing your parents off. But suddenly, the tone shifts. The father realizes that the daughter is essentially stuck to the floor. They play it off as if she's taking some kind of drug to try and rationalize the obvious absurdness of the given situation. But to their haunting surprise, they realize it's something different, something unexplainable. Soon the situation becomes even more absurd as a weird being appears outside of the house. Likewise, a seemingly uncaring grandma is watching a TV show in the living room, completely oblivious to the chaos that is unfolding. As the daughter's movement into the floor progresses, the father's reaction becomes even more absurd. He begins having a serious breakdown and he's even apologizing to his son for ruining his birthday party. It is obvious the son is traumatized by the whole situation. As things progress even more, the whole situation becomes even more disturbed. The father loses all sanity he had left. The guest who was supposed to attend the birthday party is waiting outside and they also start sinking into the ground. The grandma in the living room is given the baby, but she just casually lets it go, letting the baby wander wherever. Smoke also starts to appear and it all ends in total chaos. A chaos that just seems off on so many levels. What makes The House Has People in It so absurd and liminal is the completely uncanny situation the family is enduring. The camera filter, the suburban home, the classic family dynamic is perhaps the more liminal part of the horror, whereas the progression of the situation is best described as absurd. The reactions are off. There are all these questions left unanswered. There's this complete carelessness of the grandma, and why aren't the parents of the children outside trying to help the family? I could keep going, but the idea remains the same. Everything is just fundamentally off. And that's exactly what Freud described as das Unheimliche, something that simultaneously seems familiar and alien.